Welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast. I'm Mike.
This is Orlando, and we're on episode 434.
Yeah, it's an update episode, which we love our update episodes because this is where we get a chance to kind of talk about what we're doing reselling wise, what's going on in the reselling world in general. We're talking about all the news, the things that are happening that affect us as resellers. And then also we get to talk about those spicy bolos, those things you should be on the lookout for when you're at garage sales, estate sales, Facebook Marketplace, thrift stores, all the places that you're sourcing. So make sure to stay tuned because we've got the bolos at some point in this episode. We've got the news. But first is what's happening in our lives. So Orlando, how are things going for you?
Okay. So it's so funny because I have to think twice before I actually am real about things, right? Because the thing I get grilled for the most is that I complain or I talk about how things are slow and people automatically associate slow sales equals Orlando's lazy. And I'm just like, that is further from the truth. Mike could attest to that. I have a million things going on, and even with reselling, I'm on it. And yeah, I'll admit there's times I'm lazy. I'm not going to say there aren't times that I'm like, you know what? I have enough inventory. I don't need a list. But I got to tell you, I got to be real with things, and I always will keep it real. And it doesn't matter how many people complain that Orlando just, should just leave the podcast because he doesn't motivate anyone. Like, hey, listen, if you need me to motivate you, that's your problem, not my problem. But sales are down. And it's because of Q4 ended and we're in January.
I was going to say compared to when? Yeah. Are you saying sales are down compared to Christmas? Q4?
Yeah, compared to Christmas. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. But
yeah, that's obvious. But what about compared to this time last year? If you looked at those numbers?
It's about the same. It's still a little bit lower because there was the catastrophic event that happened in April where I switched my promoted listings to just 5% across the board instead of keeping that dynamic ad rate that I had. And so it's a little bit better. I'm not complaining about it. I just was so hopeful, right? I was so hopeful that the sales would continue on through January, and they there might be a lull, and then after January 31st, everybody has their 1099s and their W2s, yeah. And sales will kick back up, and there's also a lot of confidence right now in the market. That's something that's been showing lately. So that means that there may be confidence for consumers, right? And so I'm not mad about it. I'm just going to be real and hey, my sales are down 30% right now. I was a little shocked by it because I kind of noticed it a little bit. And then I you see it one day it's it shows you on the, where it shows the little bar graph, it shows you down 5%, down 10%. And then I'm I didn't look at it for 2 weeks. And then it said down 30 something percent. And I was whoa, that's a huge drop. Right. And not only that, it's because I've actually started listing again, right? So I rode the wave of Q4. I barely listed. I just did end until similar to 200 items every single day, and things carried, right? That's how crazy the buying season is during Q4, right? Where now I'm all right, I need to get back to listing. So I've started listing again. And it is what it is. I'm not mad about it. I don't blame anybody. Obviously, there's things I can do on my end, list more, maybe run deeper sales. I will say my inventory is getting lower and lower. That's what I wanted. I am moving here pretty soon. And so I wanted to get down to under 2,000. I'm at around 2,300 and I may get there. But, I can't complain. Here's the beauty. This is what I've realized. And this is what I've always said and I've always realized, but just it's coming to fruition again. As I move forward into not potentially, I will be doing full-time academic work again, but I will be doing eBay on the side. It's nice, right? That a nice eBay income, it allows you to live better. And what I mean by that is hey, if there was no eBay, whatever your W-2 said, that's what you were going to make. That's it. But with eBay, you could be hey, I can live in a bigger place. Hey, I can get another car if I need to. I can go on date nights every weekend. You can do more, right? And I encourage everyone, right? You don't have to go full time. Full time is not you've reached the peak of reselling and you're the ultimate person. It's no, you can have a wonderful job that you love, that you feel called to do, and you can do eBay on the side, and that'll help you. That'll help you. Some of you are in places that you really love what you do, but it kind of it stretches your paycheck a little bit, right? You're going paycheck to paycheck, but you love what you do, right? And you could make more money doing something else, but then you wouldn't be happy, right? It's not your calling. And so what eBay allows you to do is to still do what you want to do and enjoy it and make that side income. So as I think about that, as I think about this move, it's like, I'll never stop reselling. I just won't, because it allows me to do a lot. For instance, my son's in college right now, and as of right now, we got a little bit of debt. We got $2,000 to $3,000 that we owe. We took small loans just because we could. But outside of that, it could have been far larger, but because of reselling, that's not going to happen. So it's been great. And then as I'm downsizing, I got the totes. And some totes have 2 items, right? And I'm like, I don't need this tote. So I'm putting it into another tote, right? And I'm making sure I change the custom SKU label so things don't get lost while I'm moving. I always say this, check your listings. There's so much stuff that's not listed. I don't know what happened. I don't know why eBay kicked it out. Maybe it was me. I don't know what happened, but it happens all the time. And I'm talking about probably when I'm going to be done with this, I'm anticipating there's going to be at least 200 plus items that I had in my inventory, in totes on shelves that weren't listed on eBay for whatever reason. They fell off somehow.
Now, would you say that all of them were listed at one point?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay,
there's no way I would have put it in a bin.
Okay. So obviously you don't give exact numbers, but roughly about how many items are in your store?
Right now we have about 20. I have about 2,300 something.
Okay, so you're looking at 10%.
Yep.
That's a big number. I would understand maybe 1 or 2% of items falling off, but 10% seems high. So yeah, I wonder if some of those were, you got to imagine some of them have got to be user error. Some of them have got to be potentially eBay error. It's impossible to know what's what. And we've talked about instances that could cause that, right? If you had something returned and didn't relist it or something, but yeah, for that many, 10% seems like a really high number. I'd be interested if others have had the same experience. I need to kind of go through some of my inventory. Like I said, when you do that end and sell somewhere, that kind of really helps you to kind of recognize what you have. And if you're seeing things, you're like, wait a minute, I haven't relisted this item in a while. It kind of can give you that clue to check, but yeah, 10%, that's pretty intense.
Yeah. And I'm not mad about it. Again, I think a lot of it's user error. Sometimes it could be somebody bought something and instead of me pressing, or they canceled, instead of me pressing relist for free, I just never relisted. It just ended up canceled, right? Some of it could be a return and I thought I had relisted it and I put it in a bin. It could be that. I don't know. I really don't know what it is. The nice thing is it's like finding money all over again, right? I found a brand new pair of Keen boots, right? That's $70 right there, right? I found a bunch of vintage posters that are worth $80 to $100. Hey, it's all good, and then it sells, and you're fine with it. So it's just the reality of reselling, especially when you get larger inventory. So, and the other thing here is I'm moving I'm moving up to the Bay Area, and it is more expensive, and not only that. The space that you get for what you pay for, well, because it's more expensive, is less. So I'm really having to negotiate, what am I going to continue selling? And what am I going to have to, kind of figure out what I'm going to do with? Am I going to do a whatnot? Am I going to, I do have somebody right now that is trying to think about reselling and maybe help them out a little bit and bless them a little bit with some inventory. Don't know, but it's one of those things where it's I get it now. Cause sometimes we get people from New York that will reach out to us and hey, Orlando, I would love to have a large store, but I have no space. I have zero space. Right. Yep. So it's usually hey, why don't you find collectibles that you can put in a small tote. Right.
Yeah.
Or why don't
that's one of the reasons I mentioned space being one of the factors that comes into the considerations you need to make with reselling. Cause you've got your time, how much time do you have available? Your capital is an issue. Your ability to source, meaning do you have revenues of sourcing in your area? And then the other one is space. You cannot take, I think it kind of makes sense why you see some stores that are really, really fast nickel when it's I'm buying these items and I'm going to price them to sell within the month. Because space becomes such an issue. You almost have to have an entirely different method of selling in order to make sure that you're utilizing the space that you do have and not, that slow dime method we had kind of works when you have maybe storage units available for really inexpensive, because then you can just load them up, let stuff sit, and then when it sells, and it's not costing you an arm and a leg. But yeah, when you're paying a premium for storage, or you just don't have the space in your own living area, then yeah, it makes it very challenging. And so you really have to factor in space, not just your time, not just your ability to source or your capital. Like, one of those factors ends up being your weakest link, and so then you have to adjust your reselling in order to kind of adapt to that.
No, I agree. Like, there's a new guy I've seen on TikTok, which was banned, that was not banned, and we're back. I don't know what's going on, but I look at his storage unit, right? And he has a massive storage unit that has like a little office, and it's not a warehouse. It's a storage unit. Like, those do not exist here in San Diego, as far as I know. Like, if you want anything like that, you're talking about warehouse. And I remember at one time talking to some resellers. I remember even when we had our meetup years ago, West Coast Goods. I mean, him and I were talking back about like getting a warehouse, and it was crazy money. And we're talking about, I don't know what it was. It was like $10,000 a month, and it was like a small space. It wasn't even like, it was just as big as a storage unit, right? And so you're better off getting a storage unit. And so yeah, always think about that. Like, always think about, and I also tell people, like, don't judge other people that are like, hey, I got a small store and I'm running lean on this store, because you don't know the circumstances, right? And don't go, hey, I should be able to do what this person's doing. Because listen, if I was in the Midwest right now, and I love the Midwest, I could have a massive place, and I could have thousands of items. I wouldn't even have to think twice about it, right?
But sourcing might be harder for you.
Sourcing may be harder for you. It just depends. Right? Yeah, I would say, yeah, sourcing here in San Diego, it's easy. Like, it is easy.
So there's always a trade-off, right? Like, you're giving one for the other,
True. So anyways, yeah, that's my update. I'm all right. Sales need to just keep coming through, and I probably need to put a little bit more pressure on my listing quotas, and I'm just focusing on doing all that while fixing up to move here in a moment and all that good stuff. What about Mike? What's going on with you?
Yeah, man, we're cold out here. We're recording a little early, so we'll see what happens tonight. But it looks like by Wednesday, when this airs, I may have had the day before, so Tuesday. I may have had Tuesday off from school because we've got snow on the way, and so this weekend just was not the weekend for garage sales. We're talking like the weather was like 25 degrees in the morning, just way too cold for garage sales. So I had mentioned really kind of focusing on and wanting to plan estate sales. But again, estate sales, there's always, I feel like, fewer estate sales than there are garage sales. They have more things for sale usually at an estate sale than a garage sale. You kind of tend to pay up a little bit. But again, you kind of have to have rule of thumb of what you're willing to do and where you're willing to travel. We have people on our Discord who are, they live in a remote area, and they're like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm driving. If I have to drive hours every Saturday to get to where the garage sales are, that's what they do. But for me, my thought is, if I'm going to drive, 30, 40 minutes to get to an estate sale, there needs to be at least 2 or 3 estate sales I can hit on the route. All right. If I'm driving that far out to get to one. But the way the estate sales in my area this weekend were kind of set up, there's like one, the very outskirts of the outside of town on one direction, and one in like the farthest part of the other side of town. So it would have been like hours of driving to hit up 2 or 3 estate sales, and it just wasn't worth it. So for me, what I ended up doing is we just did some thrift stores. My wife and I went, and it's been a little while since my wife has gone sourcing with me. And so, you always hope. I'm like, I want her to have a good time too. I want us to find some stuff. And so like we went to 2 thrift stores, and it was just like a total bust, like nothing in the first one. And I don't like to spend a lot of time in the clothing. Maybe if I'd have spent a little bit more time in clothing, I could have found something. But as far as the hard goods, and then as far as like electronics, there just wasn't really anything in the first couple. We went to our third store, which is one of my favorite stores to go to because they have a lot of overstock or dead stock from local areas. And so things like beauty supplies, or sometimes electronics, various things like that, like cleaning supplies, they oftentimes have quite a good size selection of those at a decent price. And so we were going around, we found a handful of things that were going to be profitable. And then we were about ready to leave. We decided to hit one more side of the store, one little section we hadn't hit yet. And I saw these, I think they're brother printers that are label printers. Like, you know, like if you go to like a church or you go to an office and they print out like visitor stickers, like your picture on it, like those machines that print out labels real fast. So there was 3 of those and they were open box, right? So a lot of those stuff at those stores, they're kind of sold like as is, and they tell you on the box like what's wrong with it. So like if they're selling a blender, it'll be like as is, and it'll say like missing something another or whatever. But this one, all 3 of these, they were open box. It didn't have anything set on them. And as we're like opening them up and looking, everything is still like wrapped in its packaging. So we're like, all right. And they said that they were $10 a piece, and looking them up on eBay, they go for like $120 to $150 open box. They go for more than that if they're brand new. So I'm thinking, man, I'm going to pick up $30. I'm going to pick up 3 of these, and I'm going to do really well on these. Even if I take them all out and there is something missing, even just the components of them, like cartridges and the different, we're going to make a killing on them. When we ended up going to the register, we realized that tag was on sale. So we ended up picking them up for $5 a piece. So I paid $15 for 3 of them. So that's going to end up probably netting us a few $100s right there. And then the thing that it's kind of funny because we've talked about this on the podcast a handful of times and it's always a little awkward. And I think it was even somebody's hustle of the week not too long ago. But there was a whole section of like dead stock of adult diapers. And they were all the same size, all the same packaging, and there's a total of 19 of them. So I looked this one up and I'm trying to figure out if it's going to be profitable. And sure enough, I'm seeing them selling on eBay for quite a bit of money. Like sold comps like range anywhere, the low end of like $24, $25 for one package, all the way up to I've seen some go like $50. So I guess it just depends on the size, the need for it. So all of these were extra small, which I feel like is a bit of a niche size, which is a bit of a bummer because it looked like the extra larges were the most common, like that people were purchasing. But even still, that size that I was looking for, there were plenty of sold comps, and they were $2 a package. So I picked up all 19 of them, paid $38 total for all of those. And again, I'm probably going to make at least be able to sell them for at least $20. I can't imagine selling them for less than $20 a piece. So that's 10x my money on 19. And it's one listing. Like think about it, like that's the dream, right? Like when you have one single listing, take the picture, post the listing, quantity 19, maybe offer some discounts if they buy in bulk, and I'm good to go, right? Like that is about as easy as it gets when it comes to reselling. I would much rather that than pick up 19 individual items that I could 10x my money on and have to list 19 different things. So all said and done, I mean, it was a little bit funny walking out of the store with my wife, and I had 2 shopping carts. We each had one, and they were full of these diapers. But I think we're going to make a killing on those. So pretty excited about what we ended up doing. And I was glad my wife got to be there because I think it would have been even worse if I came home and she said, "Did you find anything?" And I'm just like pulling out all these diapers. So she was there with me when I was looking up comps. So she saw the value in them. And so, yeah, it ended up being a lot of fun.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. You know, I need to go back thrifting. It's been a long time. I mean, I'm telling you, it's been months, but yeah, there's still deals out there. And you know, it's funny. I see it all the time on social media. I see people still going to the thrift store and killing it and finding all kinds of stuff. And I always encourage people, like, use social media if you're a reseller, because it allows you to see the trends. It allows you to see what people are picking up. And sometimes it allows you to see what you shouldn't pick up because people are picking it up, right? Like, hey, so many people know about this. It's probably a dead brand now, right? But there are some brands that it doesn't matter how many people pick up. If you find it, it's going to be very profitable for you. Hey, before we move on, one of the things that is around the corner that we all, have no chance to avoid is taxes. And one of the easiest ways to make sure that, we get the most out of our taxes, meaning like we don't pay as much or maybe even get a refund, is by having good bookkeeping. And My Reseller Genie is that tool. My Reseller Genie was made by resellers for resellers, and they're continually updating. They just set up Schedule C's. They just set up a bunch of other things. So if you haven't checked out My Reseller Genie, please do so. Use our code Pure Hustle. It'll give 15% off the first month. Again, that's our code Pure Hustle. It'll give you 15% off the first month. And it's going to make you be able to breathe easier. It's going to import all your eBay stuff from the previous year. And it's going to allow you to be able to hand things over to whoever does your taxes and streamline things more. So check out My Reseller Genie. Use our code Pure Hustle. All right. Any random stories here?
Yeah, I mean, if that one wasn't random enough, right?
Yes, true. That is true.
That's pretty
Random, awkward, whatever you want to call it.
So this one is kind of interesting. So I'm interested if any of our listeners, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and throw in a comment. I'd like to know if you're still selling on Poshmark. I've pretty much stopped. My wife used to be the one that did primarily the sharing and all of that on Poshmark. Now we've got 3 kids, and we just weren't getting enough sales on Poshmark to make all of the sharing, and we never ended up doing the buying a bot or a virtual assistant to help with those. And it seems like some people have done pretty well with that. But we typically will occasionally get like an offer, a sale on Poshmark. But more often, 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, probably the sales are coming through eBay. And so what our typical process used to be, if something sold on either Poshmark or eBay, we took it off the other one. Well, it's been so long since we've had a Poshmark sale that we've almost totally forgot Poshmark existed. And so we haven't been taking things off of Poshmark as they've been selling on eBay. And we recently got a sale on eBay or on Poshmark, and it was like the exact same item that we had on already sold on eBay, but it was a different size. So we ended up having it, but I remember my wife and I both just looked at each other like, oh no, this item just sold on Poshmark and we don't have it, which to be honest would not be the end of the world to us. If something sells on Poshmark, we for sure are going to take it off eBay because we do not want to have an out of stock on eBay. If we had our Poshmark account banned, I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't even probably I might mention it on the podcast because it'd be funny. But
it takes a lot to get banned on Poshmark. It takes a lot. I don't know how many canceled orders I've had on Poshmark.
Oh, jeez. But yeah, so it was just random in the sense of we were both worried and concerned, oh no, we're not going to be able to ship this out. But sure enough, we did have it. It was a different size than the one we had previously sold on eBay. But it just reminded us, man, we need to make sure we're going into Poshmark and removing those listings when they sell. And maybe someone can let us know in the comments, maybe Poshmark is actually doing really well for them and we need to jump back on the train of sharing stores and items, and maybe we're leaving a lot of money on the table, but it's been a while. And I've heard some people mention in our comments on some of our lives and stuff that Poshmark has kind of shifted from just being the clothing store to it has moved a little bit more to hard goods. It's kind of a different animal than what I was used to. Going on 4 or 5 years ago now. So yeah, I'd be interested to know if people are having success on Poshmark, and should I be cross-posting there? Should I really be focusing on a Poshmark store? Because I could be leaving money on the table, or is it still just annoying share for an occasional sale?
Yeah, I get sales on Poshmark still, and it's good. It's nice, to me it's I am always a fan of cross-posting. This is why we work with Vendu, and you guys get a discount if you use our code PRSO on Vendu, because it's good to cross-post. It's nice to get those random Mercari sale or the random Poshmark sale. Bonanza every once in a while will show up. Yeah, it's just you just got to make sure you're on top of things, because some of these software platforms, right? They're very big on Bonanza. Bonanza will pull it for you, but Vendu does the same. But sometimes there's a glitch or something, and then you don't want to get caught there going, oh man, I can't send this out. But if you ever have to make the choice between canceling the sale on eBay and canceling on Poshmark, always cancel Poshmark. Always, always, always. There is no dings. There's no repercussions, at least as far as I know. You're always good, but on eBay it doesn't look as good, so be aware of that.
Yep.
All right, so 2 things here on my random stories. One of them is, I gotta tell you, resellers know when there's a possible deal on the horizon. So I've talked about on the podcast about me moving. I can't tell you how many messages I have gotten in the last week about hey, would you be willing to bulk all this up, or do you want to sell all this? And I just keep having a message back hey, I'm not liquidating anything. I'm not am I selling stuff? Sure. If you give me a good offer, I'll take it, but I'm not bulk liquidating. So please do not message me. And I appreciate it. I've had people hey, love the show, wondering if you'd be able to work with this. I'm not mad about it. I'm just hey, be aware that if you reach out to me to bulk liquidate, I'm not making bulk liquidation deals right now. If things do change, if I end up having to be in a one room apartment or something, then we got to talk. But as of right now, no, I'm looking to transport my entire business, a smaller business, but I'm looking to transport it over. So, but I got to tell you, resellers know, like, right. They're like, hey, I would be the same way. I would be the exact same way. So I'm not knocking the hustle. It's always funny. Like when there's a store shutting down, wait till it gets to at least 50%, right? Or, whenever there's a certain scenario, when there's this hot trending thing, right? Like right now, I think for the subway or something, for the inauguration, the smart cards or something, I don't know what they were, like people are selling those right now on eBay and they're flipping those on eBay. Like resellers always know, right? They're the first to know about different things. And the other thing is, this is more going back to our OG book study. So if you haven't been listening to, Peers of Podcast since, like, I would say 2 years plus, we did this whole time where we were doing like book study. So we read like all these books that are up here. One of them was Never Split the Difference. We also had some other good ones here, like the 4-Hour Work. I mean, all of them I thought were good, except for the, what was that one? Think Rich or something, the Napoleon Dynamite one. I don't know what it was.
Not
called.
Napoleon Dynamite. But yeah, the Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, that thing was trash. But outside of that one, all the other books were good. And here's what it was the theme on some of them. The theme on some of them is if you provide customer service, and this goes even on eBay, or if you're good to reply with people, or you're cordial, like How to Win Friends and Influence People was one of the books on there, was about like always staying positive. If you do those things, like you will go a lot further, and not just reselling, just in life, right? And right now I'm trying to find a place to stay, and it is wild. Like I'm talking about like 47 applicants for like one place, right? And it's like, how do you break the mold? Like, how do you get people to notice you, right? If everybody's applying, like how to do it. And so I've just been looking for whoever the owner is or the real estate company is, and I'm just picking up the phone and I'm just calling people. And I've been able to get my foot in the door in a few places where I would have been like number 48 in line to get into a place. But it's always calling and always, making sure you find that commonality. Like, oh, hey, yeah, I grew up in the Bay Area. I've been here, I was there for 20 years. Things have changed, huh? Oh, yeah, da-da-da. And listen, this is one of the things that I would say reselling taught us a lot about. Like, it went from very basic to like, hey, how to negotiate at a garage sale, right? How to build connections at the thrift store. But those lessons that we talked about on those podcasts, those apply across the board. And I'm reminded of that right now, especially Never Split the Difference. I think every human should just read that book just because there's so much valuable insight. How to Win Friends and Influence People, another great book. There's another book I'm reading right now that is kind of like How to Win Friends and Influence People. But I'll share with it in the future. It's actually a book that you can't find. Like it's so, I don't know what happened. Like the guy was like, I don't know. He didn't want to publish it anymore, but it's really good about getting people to share things with you indirectly, right? So instead of asking somebody like, hey, Mike, what do you do in your reselling business? You instead reposition the question. It's like, man, it seems like you sell a lot of blah, blah, blah. And that person will offhandedly go, oh, no, actually, I sell da-da-da. So they may not have answered that if you asked it directly, but if you indirectly touch on it, they may be willing to give you that answer. So it's really good. It's a really good discussion. So anyways, I'm just grateful for the journey up here as a podcast. I'm grateful for the reselling journey that we've had. Because again, these are a lot of things as in, like, if I was just an educator, like, and not just, I mean, educators are fantastic people. I'm one of them too. Okay. But you're so like in your zone of like just teaching and your subject area that you lose focus about like there's this whole wider business world. And I would say a lot of people that are going part-time on eBay, they'll begin to realize this more and more as they expand their business. So just my 2 cents. I know I went off the rails a little bit, but I think there's so much to be learned by reselling. All right. Ready to talk about some reseller topics?
Let's do it. eBay has AI listings. Facebook Marketplace and eBay are partnering. Fitbit Market is affected by theft, and Poshmark Loop collab. All this and more on Reseller News. Orlando, take it away.
All right. So what do you think? I'm just going to throw this out there for you. Where do you think eBay is going to be when it comes to selling on eBay by next year? Where do you think they're going to be? As far
What
as
do you mean
AI,
you're talking about AI goes?
like
Okay.
AI, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, so I look at a company like Amazon and how they kind of started. They're really like a logistics company, right? Like they sell things, but where their power comes from is in the data that they've collected, right? Like they've collected just so much data. Even their TVs now, like you buy, like if you have a Fire Stick or you have an Amazon TV, or you're watching Amazon Prime videos, they're currently tailoring commercials to you based off products that you buy on your account. Right. So they've collected all of this information over years, and then they're able to then use that information in order to capitalize and make some money. And I think in a lot of ways, eBay is recognizing that one of the most powerful resources they have, other than just the fact that they're making money off of us selling things and them being the platform that's happening, is they've got data. They've collected data. They have data on different items. I mean, think about like, we use something like Terapeak, and you got lots of trends of what specific items have gone for over time. And if you can find a way to like put all of that data together and really figure out how to use it well. And I think that's one of the things that, when you first look at their use of AI, it's like, oh, this seems kind of silly. You can use an AI listing, where it just gives you basically an AI summary of the item, written as if it's a listing for a post. And I've mentioned that I think that they probably are going to promote that, in their algorithm. If you're utilizing this tool, they spent money on it. But I think that if they can continue to train their AIs, they're going to be able to use this information to really, I don't know. I don't know exactly how they're going to capitalize on it, but they've got decades and decades of information about how certain shoes sell during certain times of the year and how people are. So I think they could probably use AI in a lot of ways. And I think that it's going to probably determine things like the promoted listing rates is going to be determined by AI as far as, is something hot right now? Is it not hot right now? Is it a competitive or a flooded market? Then, you're going to have to, and they're going to be able to utilize AI in order to make more money. And if they're smart, they're going to be able to allow resellers to use that same information, but probably at a premium, right? Like if you want certain information, you're going to have to pay for it. And maybe you have a specific AI assistant for your store where it's kind of going through your stuff, letting you know, making corrections for you that you just approve as far as like, we need these item specifics. We need this. Let's change this listing. Let's change this price. And there'll probably be some kind of, paid program or subscription where you can pay for different tiers where like your prices are going to fluctuate based off. I mean, think about like Amazon, like people have programs that allow your prices on Amazon to go up and down depending on what the market is. They could probably do the same thing with eBay for your postings and listings. So I wouldn't be surprised if AI continues to be incorporated more and more, in more than just the kind of surface level that we see right now with just, hey, like you can use an AI description of your item. So I wouldn't be surprised to see AI incorporated in every aspect of our life, but I think as resellers, it definitely will impact us, even on a platform like eBay. But I'm sure you've got an article here. So what are you seeing is coming?
Well, it's in the eBay seller. It's interesting. There's no announcement, but it's on eBay. Like if you go to Seller Hub and on top right to make listings. So what you can do now, and we talked about this before, we've talked about this multiple times, how eBay is getting to a place where you can just upload pictures and it'll create listings for you. It's not there yet. And I want people to be patient because it's the same thing with anything. If you use ChatGPT, you use Claude, you use Perplexity, like any AI model that you're using, it's all about learning to ask it the right prompts. But part of it is as AI continues to learn, it'll just get better, right? And so right now, on eBay, what you can do is you can take all your pictures that you have and you can just upload them. And then what it'll do is it'll create a bunch of drafts for you. Now, I believe you have to have, I've been playing with it back and forth, and I only did what it asked. It says you have to tell it how many pictures per listing that you're going to have, and then you have to have the same amount of pictures. Does that make sense? So if you're going to upload 7 pictures, you have to tell it it's going to be 7 pictures. But I did it the other day, and I had a bunch of like collectibles, and I uploaded on eBay, and boom, it made all the drafts. Now, that's one step. It's still, as far as it goes, as far as for me, for collectibles, it didn't give me like titles. It didn't give me like categories, but it may begin to do that with other items, right? Some items which will be easy would be like baseball cards, right? The card market's really easy. And I think that's already happening with other platforms that sell cards on, but I know it's also happening on eBay. But I'm super encouraged because I do anticipate, and I've said this before, that one day we'll get to a place that all we're going to have to do is take pictures and just upload them, and it'll do everything else for us.
Which then is scary, because then that gives, if the barrier to entry is that low, then that's what thrift stores would be doing, right? They can just take a picture to let them know whether it's worth selling. Like if they can scan and kind of see in a much easier way, and if it's, you know what I mean, like tools that make things that much easier for us could also make it harder for us to get items in the future.
Oh yeah, and thrift stores are already doing that. Like I think a year ago, I shared a story about how certain stores in Florida are putting things through a scanner, and as it goes through the scanner, the AI is analyzing what that item is, and it's somehow sending it somewhere where it should go. We actually had a conversation with Latin Pickers. Like they have a whole conveyor belt with books, and you just put the books in, and it sends it to, like, this should go to eBay, this should go to Amazon, this should go to the book resale shop, this should go to recycling. Like it does everything, right? So they're able to in mass quantity pick up a bunch of books and just take care of that. And I don't have a problem sharing that on podcast because we shared it on an Instagram story, so it already went to thousands of people. But yeah, we are there. eBay just is going to take a little bit for eBay to get there, but once eBay gets there, it is going to make the barrier to entry a lot easier. So what does that mean for us resellers? That means we need to be able to source better. That's all that means. Like we're going to have to source harder to find items, right? So if somebody's like, hey, you know, Patagonia and whatever, what's some other hot brands? Anyways, Carhartt, right? Carhartt or Levi's now, like any of those brands, like those are plentiful, right? They're out there. Now, some of them are worth more than others. Like, you know, if you find a certain Carhartt, you find a certain Levi tab and so on. But yes, the barrier to entry will be more difficult. But still, the way that resellers are going to make money, they're just going to have to get better about sourcing, right? So you'll be able to list a mass quantity. You'll be able to sell a mass quantity. Yes, your margins are going to drop across the board because a lot of people are going to be able to do that. So you're just going to have to get better about sourcing. I think that's the only way to be able to continue upping that. And not only that, but adapting to AI also, right? Now, I don't know. Where do you think eBay is going to land? Like, let's say there's a item not as described. Let's say we get to a place where eBay takes care of all of it. Who do you think the onus will you put on the sellers or on eBay because they're using AI? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it comes on you. Like, I think of like probably the best example would be like self-driving cars. There's already self-driving cars. I'm not super familiar. I haven't been following the technology very closely, but that's already a thing that exists where companies are using that. But the part of the requirement is there has to be a driver in the seat who's like aware of what's going on and is like ultimately in charge. So like if something happens, they can grab the steering wheel, they can apply the brake. Like they're the ones that is going to be responsible. As far as I know, that's how I understand it. So I'd imagine it'd be the same thing for something like this. Like it is a tool that would be used where, hey, here's this listing for you. Now it's the responsibility is on you to verify that all of this is correct. And then you're basically agreeing it. Yes, this is correct. And then you're going to take responsibility if it's not. Does that make sense? I think that's where I imagine it would land. Like, and if it's really doing all of that work for you, like if you can have AI do 90% of the work for you, and then you just have 10% of the time that you were spending. If you were spending 10 minutes per listing, now you're spending 1 minute just verifying like, yep, that's correct. That's correct. Oh, nope. I actually want to add this, you know, whatever detail to it. It's still going to be a huge tool that's going to save a lot of time.
Yeah. The only thing I wish it did, it's going to save a lot of time. But the only thing that I really yesterday was hoping it would do is that it would put the title, like it's not going to do so similar for you. That's the only thing I don't like, right? Because so similar saves you a ton of time, right? I think doing so similar is better than having it make a bunch of drafts for you. Because when you do so similar, you steal the title, you take all the item specifics, right? And all that's left for you is upload the pictures, right? Work out the condition, make sure the item specifics aren't crazy, and you're good to go, right? But if it just creates a bunch of drafts, I think that's some work. So eBay, if you're listening, I know you guys do because you guys have done things we suggested, not just because of us, but hey, make it in a way that maybe you could teach the algorithm to like search I don't know, the top 25% of titles of sales or whatever, and not only just draft it, but like just pull those titles and pull the item specifics. If it did that, oh my goodness, that would change everything. I would have 100 things listed every single day. Like I would be a sourcing machine. Well, I would have to get pictures done, but outside of that, I'd be a sourcing machine. So I don't know. I'm excited. Check it out sometime. It's kind of cool. And again, a lot of people are gonna like, oh, it's so slow and all this stuff. Listen, that's how it is with GPT. Even like there's times when like I ask to do something and it gets it wrong, and I'm like, can you fix it? And it's like 6 times, and eventually it gets to it, right? It's it doesn't happen often, but all AI is always about learning. The more time goes, the more things will improve.
Yep. It's still in its like infancy for sure.
Oh yeah. Which is kind of scary because of what it could do already. All right.
Just wait till it becomes an adult.
What if it is? What if this? Yeah. What if this is like 1 month old baby AI? Like what is 25-year-old AI gonna look like?
We're just training it. We're just training it to be more powerful.
Well, we are, because we're only dealing with generative AI. We're not talking about like, anyways, super intelligence. But that's a whole nother conversation. All right, let's go to eBay and Facebook partnership. So Meta and eBay, they're friends now. Maybe they've always been friends, but now
that's sweet.
eBay listings will end up on Facebook Marketplace. Thoughts?
I mean, I kind of feel like in some ways that was already happening almost like as ads. I almost see how like that's like if you go on Facebook Marketplace, a lot of the listings that look like just a listing on Facebook Marketplace, when you click on it, it ends up like will take you to like an Etsy ad or an ad on some other website, to the product there. So I kind of feel like that's part of what we're paying for when we pay for promoted listings, is some of those ad placements. So I don't see this as like a huge like shock or game changer.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought too. Like, I thought it's cool. I mean, the great thing about it is the audience, right? That it's going to reach millions of more other people. But you already see it on OfferUp, right? I get a note on OfferUp when I'm looking for things. I'm like, oh, that's a great deal. And I click on it and it takes me to an eBay listing. I'm like, no, I want an OfferUp, right? And then on OfferUp, you can pay for the premium where those eBay ads don't show up. So I don't know if Facebook has that option where like you can pay and you don't have to see all these ads, but I think it's a great thing. I'm not going to complain about it. I mean, the fact that eBay pulled our listings and started charging us for listing outside of eBay, right? And now they're doing on Facebook Marketplace. Like, I'll take it. Like, I'm happy. It just
makes it more of a bummer when you're sourcing on those sites, right? Like when you're sourcing on Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp, and you're so much of your feed is just ads to other websites. Like, that's a bummer.
Oh, Facebook Marketplace is already like crazy. It is. I would say, I don't know, maybe after like 20 scrolls, I find like one item that's even worth like contacting about, Yeah, a lot of scammers on there. But no, I think it's good. I'm glad. This is what I'll say about eBay. eBay is innovative. eBay continues to try to improve itself. Yep. Right. And that's I don't see that in the other marketplaces, right? eBay is still dominant. eBay still has far more buyers, and eBay is continually acquiring, trying to figure things out. We didn't talk about it on this, but they also like acquired, I think it was Caramel or something like that. It's a company that takes care of all the paperwork when you sell vehicles on their platform, and now eBay has that opportunity, right? We just acquired Golden Auctions this last year. We also acquired another like barcode thing for clothing. Like, it's always building, right? So to me, for all the flack I give eBay, like, I got to congratulate. Like, this is good. I mean, it was so good that the day that it was announced that eBay and Facebook were merging, like, eBay stock went up 10%, like, within that day. So it's nice. A good move. All right. Hey, I just got one last thing. I'm trying to decide. Should we talk about theft or should we talk about Poshmark, Mike?
We already talked about Poshmark, so let's hear about the theft.
No. I just thought this story is fascinating. It's always a reminder to everyone. Like, sometimes you're like, how are these prices so low? Like, how is somebody able to sell this? And I thought this story was pretty fascinating. This is from the United States Attorney's Office. It says, warehouse supervisor sentenced to 15 months in federal prison for stealing $2 million worth of Fitbits from Amazon and selling them on eBay. So he did some Amazon and eBay arbitrage. He just did it illegally. It says Dwight Oliver, 40, of Grand Prairie, Texas, has been sentenced to 50 months in federal prison, followed by 1 year of supervised release. He's been ordered to pay back $1 million for whatever in restitution. According to his court documents, between June and September of 2021, approximately $2 million worth of Fitbit devices went missing in transit to multiple Amazon fulfillment centers across the U.S. Through an internal investigation, Amazon discovered that the missing devices were associated with bulk purchases orders that had transited at one time through the warehouse where Oliver worked. In June of 2021, Oliver began stealing Fitbit devices from the warehouse. He disabled the GPS tracker of his employee Sprinter van, and then he would transport them to whatever his fence was. And the reason I read this, there's two reasons. I know at one point, a lot of people were like selling Fitbits, like they were buying them in bulk. I remember I don't know if I was eBay or somewhere, and you know, there was at one time there was like a certain Fitbit, like if you return it, like the company would honor their warranty and you would get like a paycheck in the mail. I never dealt with any of those things, but you know, I wonder, like sometimes like the market gets so flooded and you're like, there's no way anybody is buying that at cost and making a profit on it. There's just no way. It happens all the time on Amazon. It doesn't happen as much on eBay, but just a reminder, like if you start seeing, like if you're selling Fitbits, right, and you're at a place where like you're like, what is going on? I paid like $10 at the thrift and people are selling this for $10 or $15 on eBay and Amazon. Like there's no way that you're going to be able to make profit. Like move on from that category, because I'm pretty sure at the point in time that this person was selling them on eBay, like there was nobody that could compete. There just wasn't. So anyways, it was a just crazy story. Crazy.
It just amazes me that people think they get away with that kind of stuff. Like, yeah. I understand, like, when it's like people are just working with numbers, right? So, like, if it's like white collar crime where somebody in an office, like, moves a decimal point here or there, and it's like just skimming like a little bit off the top, that like that might not draw attention. But $2 million like worth
Superman
of product,
or something?
like, you don't think people, I mean, there would have to be
I
like,
it happens. Yeah.
There would have to be like some way to cover it, like, hey, the reason this stuff went missing is somebody came in and robbed the place, or like my van got like broken into and all of these boxes went missing. Because like, how do you, it just amazes me that people think that they would get away with it. It's
especially
crazy.
Amazon, like, you know, Amazon, like they track like how much you drive, they track,
like I said, they're a logistics company. That's what they do, you know. They're all about the numbers.
It just was wild to me. Anyways, just thoughts there. All right. Hey, before we move on, if you have not been following us on social media, we are Pure Hustle Podcast on all platforms, including TikTok, which is now back. Maybe we need to post on there again. It's been a while. It's been probably like 2 years since we posted on TikTok. We are Pure Hustle Cast, also on X. As always, you can shoot us an email at purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. That's purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. And grateful for all of you that listen to us on the podcast. If you ever want to see our mugs on the podcast, you can jump on over to YouTube, make sure to subscribe, smash that like button, hit that bell notification. And thank you for all the iTunes reviews. Always grateful for all of you. Please, always, when you leave a review, make sure to leave that 5-star and let people know why do you enjoy Pure Hustle Podcast. And the reason we ask for this is because it helps us on the algorithm. It allows us to be more available to more people. And so just grateful for everyone. And we haven't had a review in a little bit, but, you know, grateful to learn. This last one is Mike needs a new partner. I've learned a lot about reselling with these guys. They certainly share their sides. Orlando is a pain to listen to. Remember I talked about that? But fun to listen to. So I'm a pain, but fun to listen to. And frankly, motivation to be better. So I'm so glad that how poor... I guess I do.
We're just playing like good cop, bad cop on the podcast. We're like, you know, Orlando, when he mentions things are bad, he's using that as reverse psychology to like motivate other people.
That is my goal. So it says whether he's doing good or bad, he's always has something to complain about. Reselling takes work, and when work becomes present, he seems to always say it's tough. Yeah, because it is. Because it is tough. It's called work, Orlando. Do it or get out of the way. Okay.
Who's going to carry the boats, Orlando?
Who's gonna... What's the other line that Goggins has about souls?
I'm taking souls.
Who's gonna take the souls? So, anyways, good. Yeah. Anyways, I always appreciate that, and I appreciate the feedback. We did get a little one that said the mic levels are off, and Orlando's always lower and sometimes muffled. I find myself lowering and higher the volume. Yeah, we're always working through that.
Yeah, I'll work on it. Once we went remote, it got a little bit more challenging, but I think I've got some techniques that I'm going to try and incorporate to level out those levels.
Yeah, so come on over and get us back to the 4.9 on iTunes reviews. Okay, and last of all, if you ever want to jump in our Discord, because there's so much good stuff on our Discord. It's only $5.55 a month. Like $5.55 a month. Like, do you realize the McValue like meals are on McDonald's are more expensive? Like, it's like get a double cheeseburger and get another one for $1, which ends up being $7. Okay, but you can get onto our Patreon for $5.55, and you can make way more than $5.55 by joining our Discord. So come on over to patreon.com/PureHustlePodcast or go to the link below, and that will help you out.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some bolos.
Bolo.
What's your bolo?
Yeah. All right. So my bolo, I had a whole video that I made, actually a 2-part video about selling tools. And one of the ones that I think that I don't want to say gets overlooked, because if you're a tool seller, you know this. But a lot of times you go to garage sales and there's like cordless drills. There's like the battery pack powered drills or other power tools. And a lot of times the ones that you find at garage sales and thrift stores are just the cheapy junk ones. And even though this isn't like top of the line, if you can find some Dewalt 20-volt stuff, those drills tend to sell pretty well on eBay, even used. You know, you're probably looking at like $50 or so for the drill. But where the benefit really comes in is the 20-volt batteries. And of course, there's lots of other batteries and brands, but I'm specifically talking about the Dewalt 20-volt max battery. If you can find those, a lot of times people, especially if it's somebody who's like, you know, works construction and they're getting rid of their stuff, they usually don't just have one battery, right? They've got like 5 or 6. And so a lot of times those batteries, even used, can sell for $20-$30 used. If you can lot together like 5 of them, you're looking at like quite a bit of money. So if you can pick up some 20-volt batteries, those Dewalt 20-volt batteries, they tend to do pretty well because they can be used for various tools. And Dewalt is not a bad brand. I mean, it's not top of the line, but it's also better than just going to Harbor Freight and getting the cheapy, I don't know, I think their brand is Hercules there. But so don't pass up batteries. Even if they don't have the drill itself, if you can get some batteries, especially if they've got the chargers sell too. One of those 20-volt battery chargers, those can tend to sell for $10 to $15. So ask them, you know, don't be afraid to ask at a garage sale, like, hey, do you mind if I plug this in? Plug it in, throw the battery on. If you see a light come on, you have a pretty good chance that it's going to sell. And because you're selling used, I mean, people know with batteries, especially those lithium batteries, that there's either life in them or there's not. So unlike the lead acid batteries that tend to, diminish over time, lithium batteries tend to do pretty well. Like, they don't lose their life as in the same way, like their capacity. And then when they do, it tends to be like they just don't work at all. So you probably can do pretty well picking up and selling used 20-volt Dewalt batteries and their chargers. What about you, Orlando?
You know, that is a good book. I mean, all the time, like, I see people picking those up or selling. So for me, it's an interesting one. I very much like picking up items that are from discontinued shows or companies that go bankrupt. And especially if they're like in the public spotlight. So for example, one of them is like Enron, right? Enron is something back in 2008. Like, it has a bad history, and like there's snapbacks. If you find like one of their hats, it's like $30 to $40. If you find some of their mugs, some of their cups, it's like $30 to $40. Right. And there's plenty of them out there. A thing I picked up last year is I picked up a whole bunch of Regis and Kathy Lee mugs, T-shirts, like all these things. And I remember when I picked them up, I was like, I don't know if these are going to sell, but it was so good. I paid like $20 and I picked up like, I don't know, 30 mugs. And I've sold each of those mugs between $20 to $30 a piece. So I made $900 on just the mugs. Right. And then I sold some vintage t-shirts that were Regis and Kathy Lee. I sold some hats that were Regis and Kathy Lee. I sold Christmas ornaments that were Regis and Kathy Lee. I had all this stuff. So, there are people that think about certain shows and like, that's really cool, right? I think about right now, like the watch I would love to get is the movie Interstellar. At the end, the watch that Murph has, it's made by Hamilton, and there's a limited release, and it's worth about $900, but it's always going to maintain its value because it's tied into that movie, right? So Hamilton watches are usually worth money, okay? So no matter if you find it or not. But it's one of those things where it's from the past. I love Interstellar because it's a great movie, but I also, there's a time in my life, like, I'm raising kids and everything, and Interstellar has that familiar, like, family component to it. And I love that watch. And one day I'd like to pick up that watch. So think about just stuff that, people were reminiscent back in the day, anything that's tied to it, whether it be a mug, whether it be a hat. I've even sold press release kits for like movies. So, I sold one for Dangerous Minds, Stand and Deliver, all these different movies, and these were mass produced, but you can't just get a press kit anymore, right? It was only during that time. And so, yeah, keep an eye for those kind of things. I know that was kind of broad, but if there's anything from your growing up that you see and you're like, oh, who would want like a mug, or who would want a press kit, or who would want that random hat? You don't know. Like, there are people that just feel nostalgic and they want to have that. So that is my BOLO.
Nice.
All right, Mike, what are you looking forward to here?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm on track to do what I said I wanted to do for January, which was increase my sales by 10%, right? Like, I wanted to set a very realistic goal, and set a 10% increase month after month. And I'm definitely on track to doing that. So I'm kind of excited to see by the end of the month that I reach that 10%. And if I surpass it, I'm not going to use that as like, hey, I reached 12%, so I only need to reach 8% next month. I still want to see that 10% increase. But then if I don't make it, I'm still going to be on track to making that goal of doubling my eBay store, the total number of value that I'm getting, my total net profit by the end of the year. So yeah, I'm on track. I'm looking forward to seeing what the month turns out to be. And then, just maybe, I still think it's going to be too cold for garage sales, but hopefully get some estate sales close enough where I'm not driving 30 minutes between each one, because thrift stores are nice, but man, there's nothing like the garage sale or estate sale finds. What about you, Orlando?
So again, I'm in the middle of a move. It's going to be a while. I still got a few weeks until anything happens, but I'm actually looking forward to seeing how small I could get my storage. That's what I'm looking to. Because I'm telling you, I have about 40 to 50 totes. I would love to get those totes down to 20. Right? That would be great. I'm looking forward to kind of refining what I'm doing. Like, am I going to... So, like, for example, I have a bunch of hats. And I'm like, hats are so slow moving for me. Like, I sell maybe a hat once every 3 weeks or something. And I have about, 200 to 300 hats in my inventory. I may not pick up hats anymore just for a little while. Right. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to kind of consigning some of my items here. I have, those rugs. For crying out loud. I did nothing with those rugs. Like, I listed maybe one of them. And it's kind of one of those. I feel like, who's the guy with my precious? Who's that guy? Is it Gollum? I don't remember what his name
Gollum.
from Lord of the Rings. Yeah, Gollum, right?
Yeah, Schmeagol.
Like, I feel like a Schmeagol. That's what it is. Schmeagol, not Gollum. Schmeagol. I feel like I'm Schmeagol with. But... Okay, yeah, it is true. Before he turned into Schmeagol, he was Gollum. I think
you got that backwards, but yeah.
Did I got it backwards?
It was Schmeagol turns into Gollum.
My son would kill me right now because he's like the ultimate Lord of the Rings fan. Okay. Anyways, I feel like that's how I was with like some of the really nice items I picked up, like the rugs, my Nintendo shirt. I was like, oh, my precious, like, I'm never going to sell you unless the right buyer comes. And now I'm kind of like, I need to move this stuff. So again, please don't message me on eBay. I'm not going to go down that road. I have places I can consign to. And so I'm going to go down that road when it comes to that stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm just looking forward to figuring out storage and new beginnings. So it's going to be good. All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you for tuning in for our podcast. As always, appreciate every single one of you. And always remember to keep it. I got to keep it real. Make sure You are. Oh, why can of all the years, I'm forgetting. Keep it real.
Relevant.
Keep it reselling. Hey, it took until episode 434 for me to fumble that. 434 episodes. So,
well,
right,
yeah. So
everyone.
make sure you're all those things.
All right, let's do it again. Make sure to keep it real.
Relevant.
Keep it reselling. Late.
Peace.
Hustle Podcast guides our quest, learning tricks to be the best. On eBay we make our name, reselling dreams, winning the game.